The sound of my daughter's voice through the phone line turned my blood to ice. "My name is William." I stood frozen in the garage, my hand gripping the cold metal shelf, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had come home early from my usual Wednesday morning at the hardware store, something I never did. My truck had been making a strange noise, and I wanted to grab my toolbox before the rattling got worse. I should have announced myself when I walked in. I should have called out that I was home. But I didn't, and that silence saved my life. Sarah's voice drifted from the kitchen, sharp and urgent. My daughter, my only child. The little girl I had raised alone after her mother died when she was 12. The woman I had worked double shifts for, put through college, walked down the aisle just 3 years ago. "Marcus, I'm serious. We can't wait any longer. The debt collectors are threatening to foreclose. We need that money now." I pressed myself against the garage wall, barely breathing. Marcus, her husband, a real estate developer who always seemed to be chasing the next big deal, always just one investment away from striking it rich. "Baby, I know." Marcus's voice was lower, harder to hear. "But your dad's only 68. He could live another 20 years. We'll lose everything by then." "That's why the lodge is perfect," Sarah said. My stomach dropped. The lodge. She was talking about the gift. The surprise they had presented to me just last week with such fanfare, such apparent love. A month-long stay at an exclusive fishing lodge in remote Alaska. All expenses paid. "Happy retirement, Dad," Sarah had said, hugging me tight. "You've worked your whole life. You deserve this adventure." I had been touched, overwhelmed, actually. Since retiring 6 months ago from my job as a civil engineer, I had been at loose ends. The house felt too empty. The days too long. A month in Alaska, fishing in pristine waters, surrounded by wilderness, had sounded like exactly what I needed. "The guide you contacted," Sarah continued. "You're sure he understands what needs to happen?" My knees nearly buckled. "The guide, the lodge, what needs to happen?" "He's done this before," Marcus said. "Hunting accidents happen all the time up there, bear attacks, people falling into rivers. The wilderness is dangerous, especially for old men who aren't as steady on their feet anymore." Old men. I thought of the marathon I had run just last year, the woodworking projects in my garage, the roof I had repaired myself last month. Old men. "And you're certain it can't be traced back to us?" Sarah's voice held an edge of fear now. "Good. She should be afraid." The payment went through offshore accounts. The lodge is remote, no cell service, no witnesses. He goes out with the guide, something happens, and by the time they find him, it's just a tragic accident. We inherit the house, the life insurance, the retirement account. We're saved. The house, my house, the one I had built with my own hands 40 years ago, where I had raised Sarah, where every board and nail held a memory. The life insurance policy I had maintained religiously, making Sarah the beneficiary because she was all I had. The retirement account I had sacrificed for, eating ramen some months to make sure the contributions never stopped. And they wanted me dead for it. I must have made a sound, some small gasp of horror or pain, because Sarah suddenly said, "Did you hear something?" "It's nothing," Marcus replied. "Your dad's at the hardware store like he is every Wednesday. Stop being paranoid." But I was already moving, silently, carefully, back through the garage. My hands shook as I climbed into my truck, as I turned the key with aching slowness, as I rolled backward down the driveway without starting the engine until I was on the street. Only then did I let myself breathe. Only then did the shaking start in earnest. I drove aimlessly for an hour, my mind reeling. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my Sarah, my baby girl. But I had heard it, clear as day, unmistakable. Finally, I found myself parked outside a small law office downtown. Theodore Chen, attorney at law. I had worked with Ted on several construction projects over the years. If anyone would know what to do, it would be him. Ted listened to my story without interruption, his expression growing darker with each word. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. "William, what you're describing is conspiracy to commit murder. But here's the problem. Without evidence, without a recording, it's your word against theirs. And even if we went to the police now, what would we tell them? That you overheard a conversation? They'd want proof. So what do I do? My voice sounded hollow, broken. You have two choices, Ted said carefully. You can cancel the trip, cut Sarah out of your will, and live the rest of your life knowing your daughter wanted you dead. Or you go to Alaska. You document everything. You gather evidence. And you make sure that when this is over, there's no doubt about what they tried to do. I stared at him. You want me to walk into their trap? I want you to turn their trap into their prison cell, Ted said. But William, I won't lie to you. It will be dangerous, and you'll need to be smart. Smarter than you've ever been. I thought about Sarah's laugh when she was 7, spinning in the sprinkler in our backyard. I thought about her graduation, her wedding, all the moments I had cherished, and I thought about her voice on the phone, cold and calculating, planning my death. Tell me what I need to do, I said. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Ted connected me with a private investigator named Rita Valdez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who had spent 20 years with the FBI. She set me up with recording equipment, small devices I could hide in my jacket, my fishing vest, even my watch. You need to get the guide to incriminate himself, Rita explained. Get him talking about the plan. Get details. Make it undeniable. We couldn't alert the Alaska authorities without evidence. We couldn't stop the trip without tipping off Sarah and Marcus, so I would go. I would play the role of the oblivious father, excited for his adventure. And I would survive. Sarah and Marcus drove me to the airport. Sarah hugged me tight, and I forced myself not to pull away, not to let my revulsion show. Have the best time, Dad, she said, her eyes bright. With tears? With guilt? With greed? You deserve this. Thank you, sweetheart, I managed. This means the world to me. Marcus shook my hand, his grip firm. Stay safe up there, William. The wilderness can be unpredictable. I bet it can, I thought. The flight to Anchorage was long, giving me too much time to think. What if I was wrong? What if I had misheard? But no. The words had been too clear, too specific. The guide you contacted. What needs to happen? It can't be traced back to us. From Anchorage, a small seaplane took me to the lodge. As we flew over endless miles of forest and rivers, I understood why they had chosen this place. No roads, no neighbors, no witnesses, just wilderness and silence. The Copper River Lodge was beautiful, I had to admit. Rustic but luxurious, perched on a bluff overlooking a pristine river. The owner, a weathered man named Tom, greeted me warmly. Mr. Harrison, welcome. Your daughter arranged everything. You're going to have the time of your life. He had no idea how dark that phrase sounded. I was shown to my cabin, a cozy space with a wood-burning stove and a window overlooking the river. I unpacked my bags, checking to make sure all of Rita's recording devices were functioning. Everything seemed in order. That evening, I met my guide. Jake Reeves was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with the lean, weathered look of someone who lived hard and outdoors. His handshake was strong, his smile easy. He seemed friendly enough, knowledgeable about the area, enthusiastic about the fishing. But I couldn't shake the question. Was this the man paid to kill me? We'll start early tomorrow, Jake said over dinner in the main lodge. Best fishing is at dawn. I'll have you into king salmon like you wouldn't believe. Sounds perfect, I said, playing my role. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. Your daughter spoke highly of you, Jake said. Said you worked hard your whole life, deserved a real adventure. I watched his eyes as he said it. Was there something there? A flicker of guilt? Or was I seeing things that weren't there? That night I lay in my cabin, unable to sleep. Tomorrow I would be alone in the wilderness with Jake. Tomorrow something might happen. An accident. A tragedy. Tomorrow I might die. But I wouldn't. I couldn't. I had to survive this. I had to make them pay. Dawn came cold and gray. Jake met me at the dock with a boat loaded with fishing gear. We headed upriver, the motor a steady growl in the silence. The forest pressed in on both sides, dark and dense. Beautiful, deadly. So Jake, I said casually, once we were well away from the lodge, how long have you been guiding? About 15 years, he said. Started right after I got out of the service. Couldn't handle city life after deployment. Needed something peaceful. We fished for several hours. Jake was good at his job, patient and knowledgeable. I caught 3 king salmon, each one a fighting, silvery marvel. Under different circumstances, I would have been in heaven. But every time Jake moved behind me, I tensed. Every time we approached white water or steep banks, I watched him. Was this it? Was this when it would happen? By midday, nothing had occurred. We ate lunch on a gravel bar, the sun finally breaking through the clouds. "Jake," I said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Did my daughter Sarah, did she give you any special instructions?" "About this trip?" His expression didn't change. "Special instructions? Like what?" "I don't know. Just, she seemed very specific about wanting me to have this experience. I wondered if she told you anything particular she wanted me to do or see." Jake shrugged. "She said you were retiring, that you'd worked hard, that you deserved the best. That's about it." "Why?" Either he was an incredible actor, or he genuinely had no idea what I was talking about. I felt confusion swirl through my certainty. Had I gotten it wrong? Was Jake not involved? But then who was? The question haunted me through the rest of the day. We returned to the lodge as the sun set, both of us tired and satisfied with the day's catch. I felt almost foolish. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe. No, I had heard what I heard. That evening, I met some of the other guests. There were only 3 others at the lodge, a couple from Texas celebrating their anniversary, and another solo fisherman named David, a quiet man in his 60s, who kept to himself. I found myself watching David. Something about him felt off, though I couldn't place what. He was polite but distant, rarely making eye contact. When Tom mentioned that David had arrived just before me and had extended his stay, my suspicions grew. After dinner, I pretended to turn in early, but instead watched from my cabin window. I saw David slip out, walking not toward the river or the other cabins, but toward the small office where Tom kept his computer and satellite phone. The lodge had no cell service, but Tom had a satellite connection for emergencies. I waited until David went inside, then quietly followed, pressing myself against the wall outside the office window. David's voice drifted out, low and urgent. "Arrived as scheduled. Tomorrow or the next day. Isolated location on the upper river. To make it look natural." My heart stopped. Not Jake, David. I crept back to my cabin, my mind racing. David was the one. The man Marcus had hired. But how to prove it? How to survive it? I spent a sleepless night planning. In the morning, I approached Tom privately. "Tom, I have a strange request. I'd like to hire David as a second guide. Jake's been great, but I'm curious about some of the upper tributaries David mentioned at dinner last night." Tom looked surprised. "David? He's not a guide, Mr. Harrison. He's just a guest." "I know, but he seems knowledgeable, and I'd pay him well for his time. Would you ask him?" Tom shrugged. "If you want to spend your money that way, sure," David agreed, a bit too eagerly. We set out the next morning, just the 2 of us, in a canoe. Jake had seemed puzzled by the arrangement, but didn't object. I made sure to tell him loudly where we were going, which tributary, what time we'd be back. As David and I paddled upstream, I made conversation, my recording devices running. "So, David, what do you do for work?" "Freelance," he said vaguely. "Bit of this, bit of that. Must be nice, being your own boss. It has its perks. Gets me out of tough situations sometimes." "What kind of tough situations?" I pressed. "Oh, you know, complicated jobs. Things that need handling discreetly." We rounded a bend, entering a section of river that narrowed, the current picking up. Steep rocks rose on one side. On the other, thick forest. "This is beautiful," I said. "Feels like we're the only people for miles." "We probably are," David said. His voice had changed, grown colder. "Good for fishing. Good for other things." I felt him shift behind me in the canoe. I turned slightly, keeping my voice casual. "What other things?" "Mr. Harrison, let me be straight with you. I'm here to do a job." "What kind of job?" My hand moved slowly toward the small flare gun Rita had insisted I bring, hidden in my vest. "The kind where accidents happen to old men who don't watch their step." He stood up in the canoe, holding a paddle like a weapon. "The kind where grieving families inherit money they desperately need. The kind I've done before." Sarah paid you. I said it as a statement, not a question, making sure the recording caught every word. Sarah and Marcus. $20,000. Half up front, half when it's done. Untraceable. Smart people. They did their research, found someone with experience in this sort of thing. And you're going to kill me. Here. Now. David smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Nothing personal, Mr. Harrison. Just business. You'll slip, hit your head on those rocks, drown in the current. Tragic. I'll be the devastated witness who tried to save you but couldn't reach you in time. There's just one problem with your plan, I said. What's that? I know about it. And I've been recording every word you've said. His face went white, then red with fury. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out the small recorder from my vest, held it up. Shall I play it back for you? David lunged. The canoe rocked violently. I threw myself sideways, and we both went into the water. The shock of the cold hit like a fist. The current grabbed us immediately, pulling us downstream toward the rapids I had seen earlier. I'm not as young as I used to be, but I grew up on rivers. I know how to read water, how to survive it. David thrashed, panicked, fighting the current instead of working with it. I kicked hard, angling toward the shore, my legs burning with effort. My shoulder slammed into a rock. Pain exploded down my arm, but I grabbed hold, pulling myself into an eddy behind the boulder. I dragged myself onto a gravel bar, gasping, shaking with cold and shock. David wasn't as lucky. I watched him sweep past, still thrashing, disappearing around the bend into the white water. I should have felt something. Relief? Triumph? But I only felt hollow. I heard the sound of a motor. Moments later, Jake appeared in his boat, his face tight with concern. He had heard the commotion, had come to investigate. Mr. Harrison, what happened? I told him everything, every word. He listened in silence, his expression growing darker. That son of a bitch, Jake said quietly. I need to call this in. We need to find David, get the authorities here, and we need to contact your lawyer. It took 3 hours for the Alaska State Troopers to arrive by helicopter. They found David 2 miles downstream, clinging to a log, hypothermic but alive. They found the recording device, waterproof and still functioning, in my vest. They listened to the confession, and they made calls to Anchorage, to Seattle, to the FBI. Sarah and Marcus were arrested that evening in their home. The offshore accounts were traced. The communications with David were recovered. The plot was laid bare in black and white, undeniable and damning. I flew home a week later. Ted met me at the airport, and we went straight to the courthouse. I sat in the gallery and watched my daughter arraigned on charges of conspiracy to commit murder. She saw me. Our eyes met. She looked away first. The trial took 4 months. I testified, telling the jury everything. The overheard conversation, the trip to Alaska, David's confession, the attempted murder in the river. I kept my voice steady, factual. But inside I was breaking. This was my daughter, my little girl, and she had wanted me dead. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sarah received 25 years. Marcus got 20. David, who cooperated with prosecutors, got 15. I stood outside the courthouse after sentencing, feeling nothing but exhaustion. Ted stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, William. Did I? That's my daughter in prison for the next quarter century. That's your daughter who tried to have you murdered. There's a difference. Jake flew down for the trial. Afterward, we got coffee at a small diner near my house. What will you do now? He asked. I don't know. Sell the house, maybe. Too many memories. Too much heaviness. You could come back to Alaska, Jake said. Tom's looking for a partner in the lodge. Someone with engineering skills who could help maintain and expand the operation. Someone who likes fishing. I looked at him, surprised. Are you serious? Dead serious. You proved you're tough as nails, William. You survived something that would have broken most people. And you did it with grace. That's the kind of person I want around. I thought about my empty house, my empty days, the ghost of my daughter in every room. When would you need an answer? Jake smiled. Whenever you're ready. The door's open. 3 months later, I stood on the porch of what was now my cabin at Copper River Lodge, watching the sun set over the river. The house in Seattle was sold. The money went partly to a trust for any grandchildren Sarah might have someday, people who wouldn't be responsible for their mother's sins. The rest funded my new start. Tom and I had become partners. We were planning an expansion, new cabins, a better dock. Jake and I fished most mornings, before the guests woke up. The silence between us was comfortable, the kind that only comes with real friendship. I won't pretend I don't think about Sarah. I do. Every day. Sometimes I wake up and forget, just for a moment, what happened. Then it comes rushing back, and the pain is fresh all over again. But I also think about what Ted told me. That day in the courthouse. That I had survived. That I had fought back. That I had refused to be a victim. I'm 69 now. According to Sarah and Marcus, I should have been dead at 68. But I'm not dead. I'm alive. I'm building something new. I'm surrounded by mountains and rivers and a kind of peace I never had before. Sometimes guests ask about my story, having heard rumors from Tom. I tell them a simplified version, a conflict with family, a new start. I don't go into the details. Those are mine to carry. Jake says, I'm the strongest person he knows. I don't feel strong. Most days I feel sad. But I'm still here, still breathing, still moving forward. And maybe that's what strength really is. Not the absence of pain, but the refusal to let pain win. Not the absence of betrayal, but the ability to survive it. Not the absence of loss, but the courage to build something new from the ashes. I survived what my own daughter tried to do to me. I gathered the evidence. I faced her in court. I watched her sentenced for trying to murder her father. And now, I'm living the life she tried to steal from me. Every morning I wake up in Alaska is a victory. Every fish I catch, every guest I help, every sunset I watch is a testament to survival. My name is William Harrison. My daughter tried to have me killed for my inheritance, and I'm still here. That's my story, and every word of it is true.